Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hey everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me on the show for a chat today is Rob Wheeler. Hi Rob.
How you doing, Demi? Okay?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thanks. Yeah, I'm really super excited at the moment because I've just had my album released and we went to number one in the UK in the country album chart. So I'm over the moon.
Congratulations. I'm so excited for you, and we will definitely be chatting about your new album later during this conversation. But first, I would love for you to share with the listeners a little about yourself and your journey in music.
So I am a UK-based singer-songwriter and I am obsessed with country music. And I love to write what I like to call Northern Country, which is a blend of UK music with a lot of American influences. I'm kind of like the Beatles meets the Eagles, is kind of like, I guess, a simple way to describe it. But I've been writing songs a long time, and I think it's one of the most beautiful and creative things you can do. And yeah, so wow, did you hear that thunder?
No, no.
Talk about a dramatic
Look at that
interlude.
natural
That we got to keep
soundtrack.
that in.
Perfect. So we have lots to chat about within that, but the first thing I want to hear more about is I read that you did some touring with bands. So can you share some more about that whole experience? Maybe some of the favorite places you visited or lessons you've learned on the road?
Yeah, so I find touring to be like kind of a weird thing because I love playing live, but I find touring quite stressful, especially when it's one of my tours. So what I really enjoy is if I'm going out on the road with somebody else, especially if I'm like the special guest, it's really enjoyable to just focus on the joy of playing and just being on stage and connecting with audiences. Um, I've toured all over the UK. I think I've been to every single town in the UK. But I've played live music in Thailand and I've played over in Nashville and New York. I've played in Los Angeles. I think my most favorite gig that I've ever done was I got to perform at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, which is like a really famous bar in Nashville. It's the one that's right next to the Ryman Auditorium where they now host the Grand Ole Opry. So it's got a lot of iconic sort of heritage there, and it was a real privilege to stand on stage and play one of my own songs there. So that's probably my favorite gig I've ever done.
That sounds so awesome. I've never performed in Nashville, but I've visited a few times. It's such a great city. Do you have any plans to go back soon?
I do, and I've been there for about 4 months in the last year or so because that's where I wrote and recorded my new album. But it was great because a lot of it was work based. So I was there as as a working, writing, recording musician, artist, and it would kind of be cool to go back as a tourist, and check out some of the sights and things like that. I mean, obviously, I did get a chance to go down Broadway, and I did, soak up the atmosphere and a few whiskeys as well along the way. I had a few Nashville hangovers, but the majority of my time there was spent working. So I would love to go back to Nashville as just as a good old fashioned tourist and go and see some of the sights.
It's really fun to do the tourist stuff. When I went the first time, we did like the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. We did the Opry tour, the Ryman tour. We did the Studio B tour, which was really cool for me because I'm a classical pianist too, and they have the piano there that Elvis played on. I got a picture of it, so that was a really fun moment for me.
Yeah, amazing. Did you have a play on it?
They don't let me play on it, but that would have been fun. They let
I'm
me sit
surprised you
on the
didn't just
bench.
reach over and just press a few keys just to be
Yeah.
rebellious. Elvis would have been proud of you.
So I know that you also do some co-writing, and I saw that you were a co-writer in a studio. So can you share your experiences when it comes to writing for other artists versus writing your own music?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the main difference is the sort of ability to let go. And what I mean by that is when I'm writing for other people, I don't have the same tight grip on the song, and I know from the start that it's for somebody else. And sometimes what happens is if I'm writing a song for somebody else and I start to fall in love with it and I realize I've accidentally put a little bit too much of myself into it, I might steal it back and not let it go and start from scratch and go again. Because I think all the songs, well, I know all the songs that I've released for myself, they're very personal. They are coming from a place of real experience and real connection. Whereas when I'm writing for other people, I tend to sort of be a little bit freer, a little bit loose, a bit fast and loose, with like what I'm singing about, what I'm writing about. I don't tend to hang on to it as much. And in some ways that's kind of fun, because you're just having you are literally having fun with it. And sometimes that can open up writing opportunities that you wouldn't have for yourself because you're writing without limitation of what I find is important with my songs, which is that authentic connection. I can't write something for myself if I don't truly believe it, whereas I can lie to my heart's content if I'm writing songs for other people.
I love that, and that's super relatable as well. I've done some co-writing before, and it's that perspective too. Like, especially if you're actually co-writing with another artist and they're intending to sing the song, then they can kind of be the ones to guide, like, what do they want to say? What do they want the message to be? And then you kind of step into their shoes and write that. But I completely agree with you that when you're writing your own music, it's the personal an authentic approach because when you're singing as an artist, you have to believe what you're singing about. And so I completely relate to that as well. And that leads me to my next question for you, which is how would you describe your songwriting process?
Yeah, I've been asked this question a couple of times, and I think I don't really necessarily have one process, and I'm sure you're the same. Sometimes, you can wake up in the morning and you have those moments where a song has just dropped out of heaven and it's just there and you know it and you've just got it. And then other days you might just hear like a fragment of a saying, or you might see something that you think, oh, that could be an idea for a song. And then you have to go away and work through that and find if there is a song there. I think the only thing that I would say in terms of the songs that I write for myself, my own personal releases, the only process there is kind of to go back what I was saying before a step, which is that it must have that personal connection. Because I think then what happens is you don't need to work too hard to find the song because it's already within you. It's just a case of harnessing that emotion and that feeling and that experience and then putting it into the song. And I've always been quite lucky. I think I'm quite verbose, and words are not really an issue for me. I can, as you can probably tell, I can chat away. So um, finding the lyrics is something that I find comes quite naturally. I can write a lot of verses and then par them down to what I think is the essence of the song. The only thing that I would say is that as I always wrote alone for a long time. I was very like personal and very secretive with my songs. And going to Nashville changed that for me because I wanted to collaborate and I had to learn to let my guard down. And it was really quite a beautiful experience because the writers I wrote with in Nashville were very good at doing something that you've just said, which is allowing me to guide the song, but then coming in with these alternative suggestions. So one of the big things that I learned by going to Nashville was to let my guard down and let other people come in and write with me. So that's brought in a new element to my writing process too. I'm not as protective anymore.
Yeah, no, I love that too. And I think the collaboration is really special because, especially if you're sharing your story with someone, that's vulnerability, number one. And number two is you have your own perspective, your own personal perspective. But if you share your story with somebody else, you share the kind of song you want to write, they're coming out there from a completely different perspective and they can add extra layers to that song that you wouldn't have been able to do on your own.
That's absolutely right, and that goes back to what we were talking about before, where they've got the freedom. They can take they can be liberal with your sort of experience, and sometimes that's a good thing because it takes you out of your comfort zone and it maybe makes you ask a question or confront something that you perhaps didn't feel comfortable doing. And then that can sometimes, it's not a very nice phrase, but it's very true. It can pick the scab off. And what that means then is you're like, "Oh, I didn't necessarily want to do that, but now I have. Is there something else here that we can bring to this song that can add a new layer?" Because of course, the most important thing is that it's not about us. It's about the person listening to it and how they then take the song and it becomes something else because they then sort of mirror your emotions and your experience and bring it into how they feel about their life and what they've been through. And that's the beautiful circle of the song. It's not yours once it's been released, it's everybody else's.
Mhm, yeah, no, I completely share that perspective too. And I think that's where the really cool part comes in, especially when you start to get messages from listeners saying, "Oh, this is how I interpreted it." And that could have been completely different from the situation that inspired the song, but because you wrote it from a personal point of view, but also gave it a universal quality that allows other listeners to connect to it as well. How would you say you have evolved from your first album to this one?
Oh my days. I think it's just life experience. No, that's not true. It's not just life experience. I think a lot of it is life experience. I think that, because I've not reached a certain level of, if you like, for want of a better phrase, fame, I'm still in the struggle. I'm still hungry. I'm still fighting and scrapping away, trying to get my career, where I want it to be. And I feel incredibly fortunate that I've had a fantastic career so far. And, I have a wonderful fan base and a wonderful team around me. But because I'm still in the fight, um, that has allowed me to still have these incredible life experiences. And I'm going through things all the time. And I think one of the things that I've got better at doing is allowing people to see a little bit more of me through my songs. As I said before, I was, quite guarded with my writing. I was also quite guarded as a person. I felt like I couldn't be very honest. I would try and hide things in my songs. So there's a lot of hidden messages on my first album. There's a lot of undercurrent, a lot of hidden meaning. Whereas now I think I'm a little bit more honest. I'm a little bit more prepared to wear, the pain up front and let people see it. And of course, that a nice thing about that is it becomes kind of like healing as well. It's a healing process for me because I'm getting these, it's like therapy. You're getting these feelings out, you're getting these emotions out, and you're allowing people to hear them, and then you see how it connects with other people and it becomes part of their healing process. That's a really beautiful thing. And I think the other thing where I've definitely changed as an artist over the last few years is I think that I've definitely developed as with the craft of songwriting, um, and part of that has come from working with other people and accepting criticism, growing, as an artist, and learning that you don't always have it right. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to get it wrong. I heard a great quote from Ed Sheeran recently where he said, um, "It's okay to suck." You know what I mean? It's okay to go in the studio and make a terrible song because without going in with that bravery that you can just write anything you want, you're never going to find the next best song. You go to the studio, you might write something bad, but still write because it might be the next big one. So I think that it's just a case of bravery, and I didn't have that at the start because I didn't think I was good enough. I had imposter syndrome, whereas now I'm brave in that I will write what I truly feel. I will share what I truly feel, and I'm not afraid to get it wrong.
I relate to literally everything you said. I think it's difficult at first, especially when you have so much going on, like learning how to write a song. Then you're recording the song, then you're releasing the songs and dealing with, oh my goodness, are people gonna like it? Like there's so many things to where, like when I was first starting, I almost took the safe route to where, like you said, you were writing authentically, but almost in a way where your truths were being buried in a way. And now it's like you're being completely honest, which I've had that evolution as well, like over the years, growing as a songwriter, growing confidence as an artist and just confidence in your voice in general, like believing that what you have to say matters and not really hiding any of that. And so I feel like that's a common journey of evolution that songwriters and artists go on, that you're not going to be that super free, brave, vulnerable person at the beginning. It does take time because of all the moving parts of what it takes to be a songwriter and an artist. And speaking of this new album that just came out, what inspired this project as a whole?
So in 2021, after we just sort of got through the worst of COVID, my best friend died. He got COVID and he was in hospital, and unfortunately he didn't come out. And he was a joyous, brilliant, fun, funny, loving soul. And I miss him all the time. And what I realized was he was my biggest fan as well, you know. So like every time I wrote a new song, I would send it to him, and he would tell me how good it was, even if it was rubbish. You know, he was just that kind of guy. And what I realized was after I'd sort of gone through the initial stages of grief at losing him, was that I had this amazing thing, and I didn't need to feel bad about it, which is that I was alive, and that he would give anything to be here again, you know, and to be alive and living and striving to enjoy every minute of every day. So, as we were talking about before, with time comes the bravery, and I felt like I needed to do something significant. So, the concept for Leave Tomorrow was about leaving the safety of your comfort zone and going out into the world to try and do something, not necessarily succeeding, not necessarily having a goal to achieve, but just going and seeing and trying and tasting and smelling and all the things that make us alive. And that's what it was, the basic concept of Leave Tomorrow. I was very fortunate to work on my second album, 10 Embers, which came out just before Marcus died, actually. He actually got to hear that album. And I was working with a drummer in Nashville called Fred Eltringham, ACM award winning drummer. He plays with Sheryl Crow, he's played with Willie Nelson, unbelievable musician and a hell of a guy, just a beautiful guy. And he said to me, "Look, we're going to do this next album. You need to come to Nashville." And it was like, I'd already got all this stuff going on in my head. And when he said that, it was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. What am I waiting for? I'm going to pack my bag and I'm going to leave tomorrow. So, not literally, but not long after that, I did pack my bag. I did go to Nashville. And it was a life changing event because all of a sudden, then this initial concept of the album became something much bigger. It became about, why can't I be a UK country artist? Why can't I be from the northwest of England, growing up in a council house, you know, affordable housing for poor families? And why can't I make an album of the music that I love and that I grew up listening to? Why can't I be one of the Eagles? Why can't I be Hank Williams? And that's what this album became. It became my epiphany. It became my statement. And all these little things that had happened are all in that record. And I'm extremely proud of it. And it's been an exhausting experience writing it, recording it, getting it finished because my word, I have had this album. I've been living with this album for about 3 years. And I have cried so many tears over it. I don't think I don't even know. And like some of those tears have been joyful tears because and some of them have been sad and some of them have been through frustration. I've been through every wave of emotion with this album. But what's
Yeah.
amazing, it's all in it. It's all in the
Yeah.
album. And that's great, right?
Mhm.
Because that means it's living and it's breathing as this wonderful, you know, entity.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's all about to
Yeah.
me. It's about the experience of just getting out there and seeing the world. And you know what? I will say this before I wrap up my long answer to your question. You know what they say is that you have to go out there and you have to do it. You have to go on the adventure. But sometimes part of the adventure is realizing that it's okay to come back home again. And Campbellian archetypes are something that I'm really interested in, the hero's journey. And I very much feel like doing this journey and going on this adventure with the album and also physically getting on that plane and going out to Nashville to make this album has made me realize how much I loved it, but also how much I loved coming back home again and how much I appreciate my family, my lovely friends, and all the people that work with me. And that has been an incredible experience for me as well, personally.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that and being so open about the inspiration behind the project and all you've been through. And I just want to give you a huge congratulations on this
Thank you.
album. You're so welcome. And I wanted to ask to wrap up if you have any final pieces of advice to share, but that last bit was a packed of inspiration. But do you have any final things you would like to share? Any advice with the listeners?
Yeah, well, one thing that I would say, and I think definitely to younger songwriters who are perhaps, in my opinion, coming through at a time when music is really going through its hardest time, I think, with the way that music is consumed now through streaming and it's really quite, let's just be honest, unsustainable, is that, don't give up because don't ever make your art for anybody other than you. And if you stay in it and you believe in what you're doing and you have passion for your art and your songs, people will find you. So don't get bogged down with 0.003 pence a stream. Don't get bogged down with trying to get your flag waved higher on social media. Write your songs, speak your truth, follow your heart. And if you do all of those things, you will always have the songs and the people will find you.
Perfect. Beautiful note to end on, Rob. It was an absolute delight having you on the show. Can you please share with everybody where they can connect with you online and listen to your music?
Sure thing. Just type Rob Wheeler into the big old Google and you will find me. I'm on everything. I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, blah, blah, blah. You can find me on all of those things. And I'm very active on my socials. So if you've listened to the show today and you want to ask me any questions, just message the page or on Instagram or something, and I will message you back and say hi. And, I'm always happy to talk to people about songwriting and songs. And thank you very much for having me on, Demi. It was a
You're
pleasure to talk to
so
you.
welcome. Absolutely. And listeners, that is a wrap on this chat with Rob Wheeler. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right
right
on
on
track.
track.